We already have 7 jurors on the second day. That's extraordinary. Yesterday, I felt like we were hearing it was going to take weeks and weeks. What is your take on where this trial is right now?
Yeah, as Laura said, it was sort of first kind of slow and then all at once. I think the main reason we have this quickly, Steph, is because Merchan at the beginning let 48 folks go. Anyone who said, I don't think I can be fair. In other instances, with fewer jurors to choose from, that would have prompted retail discussions. Well, can you really? What do you think? And he just said, let's just get rid of them now and get down to business with the people who aren't trying to say they can't be fair. And that pretty quickly winnowed down to a point where they had to play their cards. That is the golden ticket of a peremptory challenge or argue challenge for cause. And now, boom, we're at 7. And you're right. At this pace, we could be done in short order. We still need 18, and it's going to get dicey because each side has used 6 of their 10 peremptory challenges, which they can use for any reason unless it's racial animus, and they're going to be out of them, and they're going to have to take some chances. It'll be wrenching. We won't be sure, but still, at this pace, it could be as soon as tomorrow, and that would, as soon as the end of the week, and with opening statements on Monday.
Mark, did you expect that we would be here this quickly? 7 jurors, day 2. I keep thinking, those 7 people, what are they doing tonight?
Absolutely not. It's a stunning turnaround from Monday's rather slow pace, as Harry said, and I think a really positive sign that this trial will move forward than a lot of us feared, including me. One of the big gambles with bringing this case in New York is that, as everyone knows, the jury pool is going to lean Democratic. We always knew that Trump's attorneys were going to seize upon that, not only to delegitimize the charges, but to try to prevent 12 men and women plus 6 alternates from serving on that jury, to say it's just impossible to find enough impartial New Yorkers who can sit and judge impartially a former president, a Republican president of the United States. And the judge in this case has admirably set all of those concerns aside. He has really, I think, excelled at differentiating between mere knowledge of Donald Trump, jurors who say, of course, I know who he is, but I don't have strong feelings, and others who come in saying, yeah, I know him, I don't like him, I don't want to be here. And again, as Harry said, by doing that, he was able to nail down a number of very clearly impartial, fair-minded New Yorkers. Look, they're probably registered Democrats, at least some of them, but that shouldn't matter. And in our court system, you are allowed to sit on a jury like this with your own views about politics and even about politicians, as long as you feel you can enter that courtroom, set all of it aside, and decide whether or not prosecutors have proved these charges beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, and reminder, this is happening in a New York courtroom because that is the state where the alleged crimes were committed. I saw Alina Habba on TV today saying it was no coincidence. It's pure strategy that this would be happening in blue New York. It's happening in New York because that's where the crimes he's charged with were allegedly committed. Susan, our colleague Vaughn Hilliard actually spoke to one juror after she was dismissed, and I want to share what she said about the former president.
I had never seen him in person before, and you see someone blown up so larger than life on the media for so many years. To see them in person is very jarring, and you get the sense that it's like, oh, this is just another guy. I guess when you're on any jury, you have elements of that person's future in your hands. So whether it was Trump or whether it was some stranger off the street in Manhattan who I had never heard of before, if you commit to sitting on the jury, you can change that person's life forever.
Susan, the nation has seen this man be sworn in as the leader of the free world. We have seen him under investigations. We have seen him through impeachments. We have seen him through seemingly countless political scandals. What might be the biggest challenge for these jurors?
You know, it's an awful lot to ask an ordinary American to step outside of their daily life and to basically decide the fate of the free world, right? And it's, you know, there are enormous potential consequences to this case and to the 3 other criminal cases that are still pending. We don't know if there'll be trials in those, but it's a huge burden. Our system envisions a jury of one's peers, but let's be real that Donald Trump is sui generis in a way, right? He is not just an average Joe citizen in this context. And the burden on this case and on all the cases is the credibility of the legal system. It's the credibility of individual jurors. And of course, it's the question of whether we're going to have someone who's going to be a convict or the president of the United States. Those are not, generally speaking, the choices that we present everyday Americans with. So I'm very sympathetic, to these folks coming here. And by the way, inviting the scrutiny. All they did was answer a summons from the state of New York to show up for jury duty. And then you have Donald Trump's lawyers combing through years of their social media. In one case I was looking at today, one of the jurors, it was their husband's social media accounts from years ago that were being combed over by the lawyers for Donald Trump. That's got to be a jarring experience, even for the most jaded of New Yorkers. There were some of those characters who showed up today as well. But it underscores how extraordinary I think this moment really is.
Imagine you're an average New Yorker who postponed jury duty 3 times, right? You got vacation, you got a dentist appointment, you got a work assignment. And then you get hit with this today. Harry, here's what I really want to know, because the judge made it very clear that it was his courtroom when he very sternly told Donald Trump he could not intimidate jurors. Donald Trump now has to sit there day in and day out in a situation he's never in a situation he has no control of, where he is not special. He knows all this evidence is coming out with witnesses that are about to lay it out there under oath. What is this going to do to him? What are we likely going to see from Donald J. Trump?
Yeah, I think this is a huge factor that people haven't really absorbed. He's a guy who goes where he wants, when he wants, does what he wants, says what he wants, and he's got to stay in that chair. Today, he got uprated basically for a little mutter to the crowd, and Merchan just came down on him. He cannot go next week to the Supreme Court argument. He's taking under advisement, is the judge, whether he can see his son's graduation. He is not in charge. And this is a guy who not only always has been, but a big part of his image is doing exactly what he wants. And now there's long periods that are boring in court. We saw him possibly fall asleep a couple times, and he's just got to stay there and take it. I think he will be really stewing inside, and we'll see whether things explode in court. I do think some of the jury, the final kind of fights over jurors will be more impacted and impassioned. We'll see that happen. But this has to be, in a way, his worst nightmare, just having to sit there and like a bad student in the corner who hasn't done his homework. That is not Donald Trump's life and never has been.
Susan, how's he going to handle it, right? This is somebody, he's never worked for anyone else. He's never obeyed anyone else. You wrote a book on how he operates. What's this going to be like?
Look, Donald Trump being forced to sit quietly and keep his mouth shut is going to be an enormous personal challenge for him. But I'm really struck by this idea that, criminal defendants, right, in a way that is a very not dehumanizing experience, but it is really, you are out of your control. As long as you face these charges, right, you are in the control of the state. You are in the control of the judge in the courtroom. You have to show up, by the way, when it's a criminal case and not just a civil case. And here it is. This man is this close. According to polls, many polls show that he's leading in the effort to return to the Oval Office, to have the power over America's vast nuclear arsenal. And he's got to sit in this courtroom and listen to a judge who doesn't like it when he mutters under his breath. I mean, it strikes me that this is perhaps the most jarring juxtaposition we could imagine in this election year. For me, it sums up the tragedy and the absurdity of 2024 in so many ways. But will he explode? It's certainly possible. But he might also just fall asleep.
Well, it will be a visual either way. All right, Mark, new topic. The Supreme Court has heard this case about the obstruction charge used in the January 6th prosecutions. Help us understand what is at stake here. What did you hear from the justices? Walk us through it.
Yeah, so this is a charge that has been used in 350 prosecutions of January 6th rioters, also forms the centerpiece of special counsel Jack Smith's indictment against Donald Trump for his own efforts to steal the election. It is a major component of the Biden administration's effort to hold people accountable for January 6th and what occurred and led up to it. And yet I heard 5 or 6 conservative justices sounding very skeptical that this particular law, this particular charge is not being applied fairly or legally to individuals involved with January 6th. I heard a number of justices like Neil Gorsuch, Clarence Thomas, even Brett Kavanaugh suggest that the purpose of this law was not really to target the obstruction of a major proceeding in Congress, but simply to target individuals who destroy or alter evidence, which in my view is really quite a cramped and unbelievable reading of the text. I mean, this was a law enacted in the wake of the Enron scandal that specifically says it shall be a crime to corruptly obstruct an official proceeding, including a congressional proceeding. What we had here was January 6th rioters attempting to obstruct the counting of electoral votes on January 6th. I think the case for this law's application here is very plain, but the conservative justices kept saying over and over again, well, could this apply to peaceful protesters? Could it apply to someone who pulled a fire alarm to stop a vote? Neil Gorsuch brought that up, clearly alluding to Representative Jamal Bowman about a year ago, and suggesting that it was either overbroad or too vague to be applied to these cases. If the court does hold that, this would be a huge shock to the entire prosecution of January 6th, because it would not only mean that hundreds of existing prosecutions and even some convictions are on very shaky ground or perhaps even overturned. It would mean that the court would be cutting the heart out of the January 6th indictment against Trump. Jack Smith would have to come back, probably add new charges, reorient and redesign his theory of the case. That would extend this case even more and probably push his trial, if it ever happens, even further down the road.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.